I wanted to take a little additional time to unpack some of the details of the gospel message. But the gospel begins with the idea that there is one true God who created the world. This is God's world. We are God's creatures. And therefore, God is the one who is in charge of us. Right? He's in charge of us because he made us. The potter has the right over the clay. And if a potter creates a vessel out of clay, that vessel belongs to the potter. And the potter can take that vessel. He can do whatever he wants with the vessel. It's his vessel. And similarly, God is the rightful ruler of the world because he made the world. And yet, unlike many human rulers, God is a good and loving ruler, and he rules the world with perfect justice. His laws are just. His ordinances are righteous. He rules the world with perfect justice. And when God made us, he created us in order to give thanks and honor and glory to him. That's what we were intended to do. That's what human beings are for. That's our purpose. And God made us so that we could only experience true joy and fulfillment in pursuit of that purpose. The problem is we've all rebelled against God and we've rejected his rightful rule in our lives. So, if you think about a story, you have the setting for the story. You have God who created us to live under his authority, to experience joy in a life devoted to him. But then as the story unfolds, you have this conflict, this problem that comes in. And the problem is that we've all rebelled and sinned against God. We've tried to make our own rules and live according to our own understanding. And the result of that is that we fail to experience the fulfillment and joy that we could experience if we were to bring our lives into conformity with God's law and live in bringing glory to him. But again, God is just, right? He rules the world with justice, which means that he takes our sin and rebellion very seriously. And in fact, he takes our sin so seriously that the just punishment for our sin is death and hell. Death and hell are not a natural part of the created order. Death and hell are God's punishment for those who live in rebellion to him. And yet the good news is that God didn't leave us to suffer the unbearable consequences that we deserve because of our sin. He sent his son to do for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. And when Jesus came into the world, Jesus lived in perfect conformity to God's law. He didn't follow the path of rebellion. He obeyed God's law at every turn, and because of his obedience, he didn't deserve God's judgment. And so when Jesus died on the cross, Jesus took the judgment, not that he deserved, he took the judgment that we deserved. When Christ died on the cross, he was punished in our place and on our behalf if our faith is in him. God then raised him from the dead to demonstrate that he accepted that sacrifice as the full and complete payment for the sins of his people. And Christ now gives new life to those who put their hope and faith in him. So that's the gospel. You have the setting where we are in God's world, created by God. We have his good law. This problem that comes in where we disobey and we rebel against the law and we incur God's judgment, and the good news that God has provided a solution to that problem. That's the gospel. It's the good news of how God gives new life to those who put their hope and faith in Christ. It's an announcement of good news that there is forgiveness of sins available in Christ because Jesus died in our place. And so if that's the gospel, the question then becomes, what do we do with that? Right? Because either we can continue to live in rebellion to God, or we can focus on who God is. The problem, of course, is that if we continue to make our own rules and live as though we are at the center of the universe, we can't experience true joy and fulfillment in our lives. And apart from Christ, we continue to reap the painful consequences that come with our rebellion, both in this life and in the next. That's one of the ways that we can choose to live our lives. Alternatively, we can rely on Christ's death and submit ourselves to God, with the result that we experience forgiveness and satisfaction and meaning and salvation in a new life that leads to everlasting joy in Him. So that is the central message of the Christian faith. That's the gospel.